Hey YouTube, it's that time of year again. I'm talking about the horror Christmas themed movie special I have, or just a video, but I'm going to be talking about mostly slasher films because, everybody knows I'm a slasher collector and some horror. That's my subgenre, and they're all going to be on DVD. I have a couple Blu-ray and a couple Laserdiscs to talk about, but growing up, I didn't have a Laserdisc player until about 15, 16 years ago, and VHS, I never bought any really. I have a few dozen, but now, VHS are cheap, but a horror, of course, is expensive as shit. And I'm not looking directly at the camera, so if I'm a little off, it's because the sunlight's still out and got the damn glare over here. So anyway, let's get started. I'm going to run through these pretty quick. No particular order. First up is a classic. To me, people could say Peeping Tom or Psycho, but the first true slasher movie for me, and classic true slasher movie, Black Christmas. Directed by the same guy, Bob Clark, that did A Christmas Story. What a fucking weird two different types of Christmas movies, but it's just amazing because the caller stalks these girls inside the college, I guess, sorority house, and even to this day, the caller in a house thing with the stranger calls started off with this. The creepy phone calls and horror films started out with this, and his voice is just so goddamn creepy. And you never see his face; you see that one eyeball. And to me, this is next to Die Hard and maybe Christmas Vacation. Black Christmas is top 4 Christmas movie for me. The remakes are fucking awful. I have the remake. I didn't bring it down. That's one I forgot, but I'm not going to talk about it anyway. It's just a fucking remake. And I have Silent Night over there too. Silent Night, Deadly Night, but I forgot to grab it. But I'll get to it in a minute. And anyway, so yeah, everybody knows about this classic. So next, another classic for notorious reasons. Not necessarily a classic, but everybody knows it. Silent Night, Deadly Night. And of course, guy sees his family get killed by Santa, and getting forced to dress up as Santa, and goes on a killing spree basically, and goes back to the nun orphanage and kill the nun that tortured him. But this movie is notorious because it was banned when it came out because all these fucking Karen parents thought it was too bad for children to watch. Killer Santa Claus. But the most famous one is Linnea Quigley scene where she gets killed on the antlers and pushes through, and her naked boobs, because she has to get naked, of course. And the guy gets killed in that scene right after her, who gets thrown through the window, is the same guy who was in Halloween 6, where he gets his throat cut in the van. Same guy. So yeah, that's Silent Night, Deadly Night. I don't have the second one, or the third one, or the fourth one, or the fifth one. I do like the second one because the garbage day thing, and even though it's a rehash of the first movie, basically flashbacks, it's fucking amazing. Eric Freeman's acting in that is just perfectly bad. And so yeah, that the other 3 was terrible. 5 is interesting with the toy maker and the killer toys. I've seen them, but I just don't have them. I like to get them all on Laserdisc, but they're all expensive. So next up, speaking of Laserdiscs, here's the DVD. Jack Frost. I just watched it a couple nights ago. Killer Santa Snowman, genetically enhanced snowman, and the one-liners in this movie are amazing. And I have the Laserdisc. It's one of the few I have of Christmas horror Laserdiscs. But the second one was terrible when I was on a tropical island and he had baby snowman. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I have it on VHS over there. But yeah, the one-liners in this movie is like, "I only asked you for a smoke." Or asked you for a smoke. And then you have like the Shannon Elizabeth scene. Everybody knows that scene where he basically screws her with his dick in the bathtub. Was as good for you as it was for me, honey? But yeah, it's really bad. But it's one of those ones you just have to laugh at. It's so cheesy and cheap, but way better than the sequel. Next up, I'll go with another Christmas slasher. And that's Christmas Evil. I forget what it's called. I think it's Better Watch Out in the UK. I think that's what it's called. This is mostly a black comedy and then turns into a psychological horror film when a guy's obsessed with Christmas, and basically just turns into a homicidal maniac. There's not a lot of blood. There's not a lot of kills, but and I think he works at like a toy factory, if I remember right. It's been a while since I watched it. But yeah, depressing toy factory. It's mostly a psychological descent into madness. I don't mind it. I think it's a mid-level type of movie and a Christmas horror film. But for me, having ADD, you have to really pay attention because it's a slow burning movie. It's one of those ones where you have to pay attention because it's not just a hack and slash type of film. But yeah, I don't mind it. But then again, it's not for everybody. I haven't watched it in a long time, so don't have a lot of info on it. This one, I still haven't watched. I got it. I think it was included in a group or something, like one of those horror packs I did. And I love the Mothman Prophecies film. I just never opened the DVD, and where the Mothman appears in Point Pleasant, which is not far from this shithole area, and they have a whole large statue of the Mothman based on what happened, even though it takes place in a present time. But it happened, I think, the 60s sometime, where the Silver Bridge was collapsed, and apparently my grandfather's brother went across the bridge, or uncle. I don't remember what my dad said. Like hours before that, where the bridge collapsed on Christmas Eve. I think it was like 60. I don't remember what year. It was in the 60s, and and then people leading up to it, they would see like the Mothman and getting all these red eyes and everything. And that's basically what this story's about. Mothman Prophecies. I really liked it. Not much else you can say about it, but it's very interesting. I always said I wanted to see that son of a bitch, but I don't have that kind of luck. Next up is a one that's forgotten, and it's To All a Good Night, where a prank goes wrong a few years before at this all-girls boarding school, and years later, girls come back and they start getting killed off one by one by a maniac in a Santa Claus suit. There's not much to say about this movie other than it was directed by David Hess. It's not memorable, but it's not terrible either. There's a lot of kills, and the killer buries the victims in like the churchyard garden or the courtyard garden, whatever. And yeah, but it's poorly lit. It looks better on Blu-ray than it does the VHS, but the VHS is completely dark, grainy, and there's not much story here. There's not a lot of memorable scenes, but it's not bad in terms of like the worst movie you've seen, but one of the most forgettable probably. And David Hess, the director of this, was the main villain in Last House on the Left, and he's also the main villain at the house at the edge of the house at the edge of the park. I think that's what it is. It's a pretty disturbing psychological horror film also. So that's this one. This is probably the worst movie I've seen. One of the worst of all time. Even worse than Jack Frost 2. And that is Blood Beat. Which I can't fucking... Basically, this girl visits her family back in Wisconsin. Or her boyfriend's family back in Wisconsin. And brings a spirit of an old dead samurai to life somehow. And it's like... objects are levitating, and it's fucking weird. I watched it and it was really, really bad. They have an updated version of this with the actual samurai face, and it's like a black background. It says Blood Beat. This is like, I don't know, a cheesier, cheaper version, but yeah, it's like let's see. A young man brings his new girlfriend home to her parents' Wisconsin. Deer hunting, watching TV, flying objects, sex with samurai. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and I don't even know why it was made, and it's so bad. But if you want to see something obscure, watch my videos. Here's one, Blood Beat. And if you want the updated version release, shit, one of those companies, I don't know if it's Synapse or Vinegar Syndrome or Code Red, somebody released an updated Blu-ray of it, so check it out if you want. Here's another one. I found this on a few years ago. I saw it on Facebook with this company. I don't even know who the hell did it. And they said, here's our new movie called Dismembering Christmas. It's only like a little over an hour. It's another forgettable movie where this girl has her friends over at her dad's snow lodge house in the wintertime and during Christmas, and a killer shows up and just starts killing him off. There's nothing memorable about it. I'm trying to remember what company it is. Slasher Studios. So yeah, I mean they have a website. I went here to bought this years ago, and I haven't been back to their website. But yeah, apparently they make a bunch of like independent horror films. Yeah, there's not anybody, just like Bloodbeat, there's nobody famous in this movie, and Christmas Evil, same thing. So yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. There's just random crapola slasher film that I wouldn't say it's terrible, but nothing memorable about it. Next up, here's another one that's completely forgotten, Deadly Dreams, where basically this guy is involved in this love triangle or triangle with let's see, I forget what it is. Caught in a web of distrust between his brother and his girlfriend, and he has these like visions of nightmares and his family being murdered by this killer in this raccoon face mask. It surprisingly wasn't too bad. I've only watched it once, but I have to go back into it. It has Xander Barkley from Terminator 2. I'm not sure which part he played in that. But it has other people in it, but I don't really recognize them. Mitchell Anderson, Party of Five. Yeah, and it takes place during Christmas time. It's not really a Christmas plot, but yeah, there's a Christmas tree set up in that person's house, and yeah, it takes. So I'm like, well, fuck it. It's not really a Christmas movie, so I'll just throw it in there. But from what I watched of it, it's kind of odd, and yeah, it's the mask. I think is cool because it has like a fucking raccoon face mask on it, or I think that's what it's supposed to be. But yeah, I mean, fox mask, not raccoon. But here's another obscure one. You might have heard, you might have not. It's never ever talked about. It's the only VHS I have right now in this list, and that's Home for the Holidays, a made-for-TV film, proto-slasher, before slasher got kicked off, even before Black Christmas and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, starring Sally Field. Yes, Sally Field in a slasher movie in 1972. And basically what it is their father invites all four of his daughters for Christmas because he's dying, and he thinks his wife's poisoning him. And when they get there, killer starts killing people off in the rain slicker. It's not really a typical slasher movie, but it has the elements of the final girl, and there's a killer and a slicker chasing Sally Field, or I think it is, through the woods toward the end, the final girl chase sequence. But it's 1972, and it's made for TV ABC film, so it's not really bloody or that scary, but it's definitely a slasher film. Home for the Holidays is one. I think it was finally released on DVD and Blu-ray or whatever a few years ago, but I forget who done it. So that's one to check out. This one I just watched because it's been a while since I watched it, and that's Secret Santa. Adam Marcus, the worst fucking movie ever. Jason Goes to Hell director. Well, this one is a little bit better. Actually, it's a lot better. It's basically this rich family and all their stereotypical, snobby attitudes, invited over for a family get-together, but somebody poisons the punch and for truth serum, and the more they drink, the more they become nuts, and they turn on each other, and they start trying to kill each other, and yeah, it's a lot of black comedy, and basically how a lot of rich people are with the outlook on how they treat others. And well, it's definitely a slasher movie, but it's a black comedy slasher movie. And yeah, there's some cool kills, like a guy gets his head cut off by a shovel and all that sort of stuff. But remember in Jason Goes to Hell where they would vomit stuff, or the fucking creature would come out of their mouth? Yeah, same thing here, where this shit would burn some of the people alive on their insides, and because they would complain about start getting really hot, they would puke out their insides. So yeah, it's kind of similar on that thing, but they play the Secret Santa game, and they're trying to guess who got their gift, and then that's how the fight starts, and they start fighting and turning on each other. So it's definitely recommended. I think it was pretty good. I mean, especially if you don't like how rich snobby people are, then that's the movie for you. Next up, it's Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys, another made-for-TV film, I think, Sci-Fi 2004. Of course, I have my Demonic Toys shirt on. And it has Corey Feldman. And it's directed by the guy that did a lot of work with Charles Band of Full Moon. He did he did work on one of the cheesiest, best movies they did. His first one was Terror Vision. He also did like the Subspecies films and a few others. He said this movie shouldn't have been made. It was a mistake, and he said Corey Feldman was basically terrible. And I asked about Corey Feldman when I met him if he would sign this, and he said he had a bad experience because his son or daughter was born. I forget which one, and or might have said child. And they were in a hospital, and they were being pricks about him. And they wouldn't let him see his child because he was doing bad or something. And so he said he has bad memories of this film, and apparently the director doesn't like him either, so he wouldn't sign it. so that's the story of that. But basically, it's him as the great nephew of Andre Toulon, of the Puppet Master guy, and the woman that's trying to kidnap the puppets was the woman from Kingpin, Vanessa Angel, and she ends up kidnapping his daughter and blah blah blah, and tries to get the puppets to turn on him, and yeah, it didn't work. Next up is another one that was really forgotten. There's no fucking plot whatsoever. It's Don't Open Till Christmas. It's a British horror film where a guy just goes around killing Santa Clauses in London area, I think, and there's no plot to why he kills them. I'm pretty sure. I think the end it might reveal, but it's so cheesy. And the only one, Edwin Purdom, which directs this, said he would only direct it if he starred in the film as the interviewer or the reporter. And the reporter is the only one that has any info on who might be the killer. But there's a ton of fucking kills in this movie. One of those Santa Clauses gets his dick chopped off in a fucking restroom. So yeah, I mean, it's not good. It's bad. There's no plot whatsoever. It's just what the fuck, what's going on. But yeah, I mean, it's worth a watch at least once. And Caroline Munro from Maniac, the last horror film, Slaughter High, and the James Bond movie. I think it was Never Say Never Again. I don't know, well, maybe not. I forget which one she's in, but yeah, she's in it for like a few scenes and dies, and filmed it in one day. So I think she dies, but I know she's in a really short period. It's been a while since I watched these bad films, but yeah, this is a British movie, Don't Open Till Christmas. Check it out if you just want a standard slasher, or if you don't like Santa Claus. If you don't like Santa Claus, this might be for you. And here's one. It's not really Christmas themed, but it takes place at a college dorm during Christmas break, so I included it in here. That's The Dorm That Dripped Blood. And basically a killer stalks these students that stay behind during Christmas break to clean up the dorms, basically. And it has Daphne Zuniga in it, who was in a pretty big star in the 80s. She was in the Spaceballs, the Princess Leia, I forget the name of the movie, because I don't like Star Wars. And she was in The Sure Thing with John Cusack. Yeah, she was a pretty big movie star in the 80s. And of course, she was one of the first to die in this film. And it's also known as Pranks. There's a cut version called Pranks where they take out all the blood and guts and gore and everything. It's a pretty dark film. Like, a lot of scenes are dark in this movie. But I liked it. There's not like the drill scene is pretty brutal scene from the 80s. Not as bad as not as brutal as City of the Living Dead. If you watched that, you know what I mean. But it's pretty bloody and pretty gory for back in the 80s. Anyway, the ending of this film, I'm not going to give it away, you have to watch it, is one of the few of its kind, especially back in the 80s. So if you've watched this movie and seen the ending, you know what I'm talking about. So that wraps up all the ones I have right now. I also have the Silent Night, Deadly Night remake with, has Donald Logue in it. But yeah, fuck it, it's just a remake. And I'll go get off here in a second after I show the two New Year's. I figure I'll show them. Terror Train, the Jamie Lee Curtis one where she's stalked by the killer on a train and he wears different masks the whole time. There's a remake of this coming out, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to watch it. It's decent. If you've seen it, it's not her best horror film. There's not a lot of blood and guts, but I like it. The David Copperfield scenes are kind of weird, but whatever. Here's one you don't know, another one. It's called The Ghost Keeper. And it's basically this woman owns this hotel in Banff, the National Hotel. I forget what it's called, but I saw it when I was in Banff. Banff's a beautiful city, or town, in the Canadian Rockies. It's supposed to be haunted in real life, too, the hotel. Anyway, these people go to this hotel, and they meet this really weird woman who's keeping this, like, Wendigo as a son or something, secret. And it's really slow and boring, but I have to watch it again. Maybe I just didn't pay attention enough. But yeah, the secret is this Wendigo son that ends up killing the people staying there. And it's kind of like Until Dawn. If you played that game, it's the same damn thing. It's set in the Canadian, I think it's British Columbia in the video game, and they are stuck and are chased by all these evil Wendigos. It's basically what this is. So the person that watched that, or did that video game, probably watched this film. But that's the two I have. There's also New Year's Evil, which surprisingly I don't own, where a killer calls up every hour before the midnight or the top of the hour. He'll kill another victim. But yeah, that one's okay. I'm going to get it eventually. So that's my list. I probably forgot a few, like the remakes I didn't bring around, but that's the ones I have. Let me know what you think of these movies, if you've seen any of these movies, which one you want to see of these films that you haven't. But that's my list for this time around. I'll probably end up getting more. I might see Violent Night. It's not really a horror film. It's like a die-hard, vengeful Santa Claus. But there's one coming out called Christmas, Bloody Christmas, I think, where a robotic Santa Claus goes defective and starts killing people. That looks interesting. But yeah, this is my list. I'll put a video at the end like I always do, and please subscribe. It always helps me. This is a channel that doesn't have a lot of flair to it. It's me being honest with you. Just a metalhead through and through, and a horror and slasher lover. This is all just straightforward, and I go with it. I don't plan it. I don't do anything. It's just boom, straight and simple. So it's over 20 minutes long. It's kind of a long video. I knew it would be long because I have a long list here. But anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I hope you enjoy these videos, these movies. If not, check them out. So keep on rocking. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.